Okay, so hey everyone. This upload's a little unusual. It's some cut material from the Love, Death, and Robots Season 3 discussion. We talked about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but it was cut for time. It was a pretty fun tangent, and I didn't want it just to go to waste, so here are the usable parts of that edited together for like a mini tangent episode. We might start doing some of these tangent episode uploads more frequently, and we actually might start changing the format of the podcast a little bit in the future. The next episode is going to be on 12 Angry Men, but for now, enjoy. Most recently, I watched the new Doctor Strange movie, and like that movie was fine. There was so many moments that I was like, "Oh, this part is amazing. This is so interesting." But overall, it was just fine. And it feels like there's a better movie in that movie that it just isn't the movie they were trying to put out. You know?
Yeah, it was okay. So to like go on the small tangent of that movie, because that's obviously not what this this podcast is about.
I mean, hey, it's all good. You know, I do tangents a lot too.
Yeah, no, but to go on to that one, right? Spoiler alert for Multiverse of Madness.
That's like, yeah, mini tangent for that movie.
So like spoiler alert for that. There's like it's a tiny plot point that they don't use and it pisses me off. The like every other person that Strange comes in contact with in the movie, right? Pretty much like, yo, okay, so what you did with Thanos, right? Was like, that's the only way you could have done it. He was like, yeah. And they're like, all right, cool, fine. And like everybody does that. Every single person is like, you sure? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, Strange. You need to learn how to trust everybody else. And it's like, okay, cool. Everybody brings up the fact that is this the only way he could have handled this situation? And at no point does Strange reveal the fact that no, actually I was lying this whole time and I just decided that was the best way my person, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
if that was the twist, right, where the whole movie everybody was like, yo, was this the only way? Was this the only way? Was this the only way? And Strange was like, actually no, I fucking lied. This was the best way. I saw the future that what's her name lived.
Yeah.
And that's the one I picked.
Right.
And the idea that like they bring it up so often and people were like, no, but you don't understand, like he does learn to not be like rely on himself and like be selfish with how his actions are. I was like, no, our Strange never had that problem. If you showed me our Strange having that problem, right, in the film where he does try to like betray America or he does make decisions that are like against the greater good of the people around him, then I would believe you. But the Strange that we get in the movie is his whole entire arc is, okay, so you met this other Strange, and you know this other Strange, and you know this other Strange, and all those Stranges were assholes. But I am not him. And so it pissed me off because I was like, yo, like, there's so much that you could like go into this guy's character by being like, he did make a selfish decision, right, in this huge moment of crisis and how that affects him and how he has to not do that again, right? But instead, in that movie, he never had a crisis of character. He never made a self. It was always, all right, so I'm helping someone else. I'm helping someone else out. This is for someone, like, it's ultimately everything I do, even at the end where he like uses the Darkhold, it's not for himself and for how he thinks it needs to be done. He's like, I'm sacrificing myself to do this.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's pretty well put. I think for me, so I'm sure you've heard this complaint or opinion said by many movie YouTubers or the media at large, but when people bring up the Hulk, right?
Yeah.
They always bring up that like, oh, the Hulk probably won't ever have a solo movie because he works better as a supporting character than he does a leading character, right?
Yeah.
That's something I've heard many times. And I don't know how much weight I would give to that because I think the Hulk is kind of interesting and it really depends on who is directing or producing it and what creativity they can bring to make a movie with him.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bullshit thing you say about a character when you're about to make a She-Hulk show.
Yeah, exactly. Which looks really cool, and I'm super happy with the actress they chose because I loved her in Orphan Black, and she's a very talented actress with a lot of range. Only because of that show.
Which I'm not hating on She-Hulk by saying that. I'm just saying that like clearly if you can write stories for She-Hulk, which she has an abundance of, she has a great comic series that from the 80s, I think. But
she's had a lot of great highlights as a character throughout her comic book run.
Yeah, she does a lot of stuff. She's a lot of fun. But like Hulk also has like a lot of cool stuff that he does and has a lot of fun.
100%.
Like shoot, I think I'm like one of the few people who actually don't mind Edward Norton's Incredible Hulk movie.
I agree. I really enjoyed it when it came out, and I don't think it's as bad as maybe some people remember. remember it, you know?
I think it's visually stronger than 95% of the Marvel movies we get nowadays.
So the thing I brought that up is because I feel like you could probably see in the future people saying the same thing about Doctor Strange solely based off his involvement in Spider-Man and in this movie. Even though it was his movie, I feel like the most recent or this Multiverse of Madness movie with Doctor Strange, every aspect of the storyline that involved Doctor Strange was probably the weakest part of his movie. And to me, it should have just been Scarlet Witch's movie from the beginning. Like, I was more captivated by her moments in the movie, even more so than Doctor Strange's parts. Like, she was such an interesting addition to this movie, to the point where I feel like she completely overshadowed Doctor Strange and Benedict Cumberbatch, right?
I think she does. I mean, I don't like her arc in it, but I think, yeah, I agree with you where it's like she's infinitely more interesting of a character in this film.
And arguably, if you wanted to make a or act storyline where you want to bring the multiverse into the main Marvel movie franchise, right? I think Scarlet Witch was probably the better thing to do than Doctor Strange, and having her as the main antagonist that results in the like a bigger villain showing up be the better choice now that everything's come out in hindsight, right? Hindsight does a lot. But yeah, it was just kind of like the movie was fine. I think I would have rather seen Scarlet Witch in the Multiverse of Madness versus Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, you know?
I'm gonna tinfoil hat this and say that the only reason it's not a Scarlet Witch movie and they didn't do more is because one, it was put into production before WandaVision, so they had no idea how people would react to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on top of it too, it's like, oh, we're gonna go into classic old Marvel ways. She's a woman. We're not gonna give her a solo movie.
God, dude,
Like, yo, you guys suck.
I mean, honestly, I feel like I will also put on my tinfoil hat and be like, yeah, probably, because they shoehorn a storyline that I feel was kind of lazy for Doctor Strange, which is he has a love interest that I feel was very not a big part of the story the first time around, and second time around it wasn't as compelling either. And Scarlet Witch storyline, even though I understand a lot of people's like opinion of maybe not giving the one of the major women in Marvel a character arc where she wants to be a mother and raise children, you can kind of see that point. But I really like that aspect, and it feels like that's kind of like her truth almost a bit, you know, that she wants to be a mom with a suburban life, and everything else is just not what she wants but is forced into. But
I would also say I don't think personally, and this is just like an entirely different. I don't think, what is it, Phase 4? What are Phase 4, right?
I believe we are currently in phase 4 of Marvel.
All right. Movie wise, 3 out of the 4, at the very least, the last 2 Marvel films have been very generous to their female characters. I'm personally not a fan of how they decide to treat them. They make them very shallow and like very in a not in, I think Wanda has depth to her, but like they do kind of boil her down from WandaVision to like angry mom who only cares about her kids. And I was like, you also have Vision. I don't know if you remember that guy.
Yeah.
Do you not want your husband around with your kids?
Yeah, I mean, continuing to wear my tinfoil hat, right? It feels like Marvel's like, oh yeah, you guys want strong women? We'll give that to you. They're not going to be the main lead. Like, we might have 1 or 2 that's the main lead, but they're not going to ever be more than the potential to be a love interest.
Yeah, or they're just gonna be in a TV show.
Yeah, unless they're in a TV show, and even there, you probably are going to expect some kind of love interest aspect to their role. You know, like it feels like women and love interest roles go hand in hand with Marvel productions and TV and movies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like it isn't all the women in Marvel movies and TV shows, but like, I don't know, man. If you could say that a majority of them are love interests, that's probably not the best thing to say, right?
Yeah, I think they kind of shoehorn them in.
Yeah.
Which
it's gonna be hard to decide how much of this I want to keep in this episode, because it was a fun tangent, but it's very irrelevant to the thing we were initially talking about.
it's like we cut this out. They're just shorts.